For my birthday, my family took me to a cheap restaurant and gave me a card that read, "Maybe next year you'll do something worth a real gift." I just grinned, posted a photo, and left without a word. 3 days later, they were panicking in the group chat. I, 27M, had always been the forgotten middle child, sandwiched between my older brother's medical degree and my younger sister's law career. My family made it clear through years of subtle neglect and not-so-subtle comparisons that I was the disappointment, the black sheep, the one who chose to work in tech instead of pursuing something they considered prestigious. My birthday this year fell on a Saturday, and like every year before, I hoped things might be different. Maybe this time they'd remember what I actually liked, or at least pretend to care about the software company I'd been building from scratch for the past 3 years. They picked me up at noon and drove to a chain restaurant near the strip mall. Not even a decent chain. One of those places where the food comes pre-packaged and reheated. My brother complained about having to leave his golf game early while my sister scrolled through her phone the entire drive. Mom made small talk about the weather, and Dad focused on the road like we were strangers he was giving a ride to. We sat in a sticky booth under fluorescent lighting. The server took our orders while my family barely acknowledged my presence. My brother talked about his latest surgery, my sister about her recent case win, and my parents beamed with pride. When the conversation briefly turned to me, Dad asked if I was still playing around with computers. I told him about the major client we'd just landed, how our software was being implemented in hospitals across 3 states, how we tripled our revenue. He nodded absently and changed the subject back to my brother's upcoming conference presentation. The food arrived lukewarm. We ate in relative silence until Mom pulled out a birthday card from her purse. It was generic, the kind you grab from the drugstore checkout line. She slid it across the table with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I opened it, expecting the usual, "Hope your day is special" message. Instead, handwritten in my mother's neat cursive were the words, "Maybe next year you'll do something worth a real gift." The table went quiet. My siblings looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Dad cleared his throat and flagged the server for the check. Mom watched my face carefully, probably expecting some kind of reaction. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, something colder. More calculating. I looked around the table at these people who shared my DNA, but had never really known me. Who had spent 27 years making me feel invisible. I smiled. Not a fake smile or a hurt smile, but a genuine one that seemed to catch them off guard. I thanked them for the lovely dinner and the thoughtful card, pulled out my phone, and took a photo of the card lying open on the table. The restaurant's cheap lighting and sticky surfaces were perfectly visible in the background. I posted it immediately to my Instagram story with the caption, "Birthday wisdom from the family, heart with ribbon, grateful, blessed family time." Then I shared it to Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. My phone started buzzing almost immediately, but I silenced it and put it away. I excused myself to use the restroom, but instead walked straight out of the restaurant. The parking lot was half empty, and I called an Uber. By the time I got home, my phone had exploded. Hundreds of notifications, comments, messages, shares. My story was being screenshot and shared across platforms. Friends, colleagues, acquaintances, everyone was seeing my family's gift in its full glory. The responses ranged from shocked to supportive to outright angry on my behalf. Former classmates shared their own stories of family disappointment. Colleagues who knew about my company's success were expressing disbelief. A few local news pages had picked it up as an example of toxic family dynamics. But I wasn't reading any of it. I powered off my phone and spent the weekend working. My company had a major presentation on Monday, and I wanted it to be perfect. Monday morning arrived with a flurry of missed calls and texts. My brother had called 17 times. My sister left a series of increasingly frantic voicemails. My parents' landline showed up repeatedly in my call log. I ignored them all and went to work. The presentation went flawlessly. Our potential client, a major hospital network, was so impressed they signed the contract on the spot. 3-year deal worth $2.8 million. Tuesday brought more of the same. My family was clearly spiraling, but I had meetings to attend and code to review. One of my employees mentioned seeing something about me on social media, but I just nodded and kept working. Wednesday morning, I finally turned on my phone's notifications. The group chat my family had created years ago, the one I usually just muted, was lighting up like a Christmas tree. My brother had sent a message asking if I was okay. mentioning that people were reaching out to him about some social media situation. My sister wanted to know why mutual family friends were asking her about my birthday dinner. Mom's messages started concerned and gradually became more panicked as she realized the scope of what was happening. Dad's contribution was typical. Turn off your phone and this will blow over. But it wasn't blowing over. If anything, it was gaining momentum. The local business journal had picked up the story after someone connected my social media posts to my company's recent success. They'd written a piece about how family dynamics can impact entrepreneurs, using my situation as a case study. That's when things got interesting. The hospital network that had just signed with us released a statement supporting innovative young entrepreneurs who overcome personal challenges to build successful businesses. It was subtle, but anyone following the story would understand the connection. My LinkedIn profile exploded with connection requests. Other tech companies reached out about potential partnerships. 3 different podcasts wanted interviews about building success despite family obstacles. Thursday morning, my mother called my office directly. My assistant asked if I wanted to take it. I told her to let it go to voicemail. In the voicemail, Mom's voice was strained. She said people from her book club were asking questions. Dad's coworkers had seen the story. My brother's hospital colleagues were making comments. My sister mentioned that partners at her law firm were bringing it up. They wanted to meet, to talk things through, to clear up any misunderstandings. I deleted the voicemail and got back to work. Friday brought a text from my brother that was different from the others. No panic, no damage control. Just, I saw the hospital network announcement. Congratulations on the contract. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time. My brother had never, not once, acknowledged my professional achievements. He'd spent years dismissing my work as computer stuff, while expecting me to celebrate every minor milestone in his medical career. But I didn't respond. Not yet. Update 1. The weekend was quiet, which should have been my first warning. My family never stayed quiet for long when they wanted something. Monday morning, I arrived at the office to find my assistant looking flustered. She told me my parents were in the lobby, asking to see me. They'd been there for 20 minutes. I considered having security escort them out, but curiosity got the better of me. I told her to give me 5 minutes, then send them up. They looked older somehow. Dad's usual confident posture was gone, and Mom kept fidgeting with her purse strap. When they sat across from my desk, the power dynamic was completely reversed from every previous interaction we'd had. Dad started talking about how things got out of hand and how they never intended to hurt my feelings. Mom nodded along, adding that the card was meant to be motivational. I let them talk. They explained how the social media attention was affecting their daily lives. Mom's book club friends were asking pointed questions about their parenting. Dad's golf buddies were making jokes about his successful son they'd never heard him mention. My sister's law firm had seen the story trending on business networks. My brother's department head had asked if he was related to that tech entrepreneur and seemed surprised when he said yes. They wanted me to post something clarifying the situation. Maybe explain that it was a misunderstanding. Show that we were a loving family working through a minor disagreement. I listened to their entire pitch without saying a word. When they finished, I asked them a simple question. What was the name of my company? They looked at each other. Dad cleared his throat and made a guess that was completely wrong. Mom tried to help by mentioning something about computers. I asked when they thought I'd started the company. Another wrong answer. I asked how many people I employed, what our annual revenue was, what problems our software solved. Blank stares. Then I asked about my brother's residency program, my sister's law specialty, their career milestones and achievements. They answered every question perfectly, with pride in their voices and specific details. The silence that followed was deafening. I told them I appreciated their visit, but I had a conference call with our new clients in 10 minutes. They needed to leave. As they reached the door, Dad turned back. He said he was proud of what I'd built, that he was sorry for not paying attention before. I told him I knew he was. I also told him it was too late. Update 2. 2 weeks passed. The social media storm had died down to a manageable buzz, but the business opportunities it had created were just getting started. 3 more major contracts, a feature in a national business magazine, and an invitation to speak at a tech conference. My family's attempts at contact became less frequent but more desperate. My sister tried a different approach, sending a long email about how she'd always looked up to me, how she'd been wrong to dismiss my work. My brother shared an article about my company with his colleagues and tagged me, trying to show public support. But the damage was deeper than they realized. It wasn't just about the birthday dinner or the card. It was about 27 years of being invisible in my own family. The breaking point came during a family emergency. My maternal grandmother had a heart attack and was hospitalized. Mom called, crying, begging me to come to the hospital. She said Grandma was asking for me. I drove to the hospital immediately. Grandma had always been different from the rest of the family. She'd actually listen when I talked about my work, asked thoughtful questions, celebrated my small victories when no one else did. She was awake when I arrived, looking fragile but alert. We talked for an hour about everything except the family drama. She asked about my company, my employees, my future plans. She told me she was proud of what I'd accomplished and that she'd always known I was special. When I left her room, my family was waiting in the hallway. They looked hopeful, like my presence meant things could go back to normal. My brother approached first. He said he wanted to make things right, that he realized how badly they'd all treated me. My sister nodded, tears in her eyes, talking about family being more important than pride. Mom and Dad hung back, but I could see the desperation in their faces. The social media attention had evolved beyond embarrassment into genuine social consequences. Dad's business networking was affected. Mom's social circle had shifted. They were experiencing, for the first time, what it felt like to be judged and found wanting by people who mattered to them. I looked at each of them carefully. My brother, who'd spent years making me feel stupid for choosing tech over medicine. My sister, who'd rolled her eyes every time I mentioned my work. My parents, who'd introduced me to their friends as our other son while showcasing my siblings' achievements. I told them I forgave them. The relief on their faces was immediate and obvious. Then I told them forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. Update 3. 6 months have passed since that birthday dinner that changed everything. My grandmother recovered fully and now video calls me twice a week to check on the company. She's the only family member I maintain regular contact with. The business has grown beyond anything I'd imagined. The viral attention opened doors I never knew existed. We've expanded to 2 new cities, hired 15 more employees, and our software is now used in over 100 hospitals nationwide. My family has tried various approaches to rebuild our relationship. Invitations to holidays, apologies through mutual friends, even an attempt to create a scholarship in my name at the local university. Each gesture feels hollow because it's motivated by their discomfort rather than genuine understanding. My brother sent me an article about sibling relationships and healing. My sister invited me to her engagement party, making it clear how much my presence would mean to her. My parents suggested family therapy, professional mediation, anything that might repair the damage. But here's what they still don't understand. I'm not angry anymore. I don't wake up thinking about their neglect or planning my next move against them. I've simply moved on to a life where my worth isn't determined by their approval. The birthday card still sits on my desk, not as a reminder of hurt, but as a reminder of the moment I stopped seeking validation from people who were never capable of giving it. Their prediction was wrong. I had already done something worth recognition. They just hadn't been paying attention. Last week, I received a wedding invitation in the mail. My cousin, who I hadn't spoken to in years, was getting married. The invitation included a handwritten note mentioning how much she'd always admired my determination and independence. I realized then that while my immediate family had been too blind to see my worth, others hadn't been. Teachers who'd encouraged my programming skills, friends who'd supported my entrepreneurial dreams, colleagues who'd believed in my vision. I'd never been as invisible as my family made me feel. The company continues to thrive. We're developing new software that could revolutionize patient care coordination. I've been invited to speak at 3 major conferences next year. Ford's wants to include me in their 30 under 30 technology feature. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if they'd simply written "Happy Birthday" in that card. If they'd chosen a nicer restaurant, asked about my work, shown even minimal interest in my life. Would I have continued accepting their crumbs of attention? Would I have kept shrinking myself to fit their limited expectations? I'm grateful now that they didn't. Their final insult was exactly the catalyst I needed to stop seeking their approval and start building a life worthy of my own respect. My assistant asks occasionally if I want her to put my family's calls through. I tell her no, but not with anger anymore. Just with the calm certainty of someone who's found their place in the world and no longer needs permission to occupy it. The irony isn't lost on me that in trying to diminish my achievements, they inadvertently amplified them beyond anything I could have done alone. Their dismissal became my marketing campaign. Their neglect became my motivation. Their cruelty became my freedom. I kept my promise to myself that day in the restaurant. I grinned, posted the photo, and left without a word. But I never promised I'd come back.